Hello, friends. Good afternoon. I hope all of you are doing well. So, today I'm just coming with a new concept to have a quick, short discussion. And this is emerging from the mental models which we all experience at various points of time. So, some of you may have a question: what are mental models? Mental models are how we understand the world. And not only do they shape what we think and how we understand, but they also shape the connections and opportunities that we see. So, mental models are helpful because it simplify complexity. Why we consider some things more important or relevant than others, and how we reason. So we will quickly go into exploring today a simple mental model, which probably will be helpful for you to understand. And that mental model which we are discussing today is: the map is not the territory. So, once again, I welcome all of you, and great to see all of you today. So, let us proceed to understand what we mean by the map is not the territory. Okay. So, this concept was coined by Alfred Korzybski, a Polish American scientist and philosopher. So he introduced and popularized this concept: the map is not the territory. And it means the description of thing is not the thing itself. And these have a lot of application in our business and personal space. And what we explore here is how and we see the world around us and how we make decisions. So let me give you a bit more information here. For any situation in general, like for example, in an organizational context, we are discussing about a change situations. Quite often, people don't have absolute knowledge of what the reality is. And this is because of limitations in which we experience. But they possess a subset of that knowledge that is then seen through their lens of their own experiences. So let me take you to this simple concept a bit more in detail. So when we see a picture is a representation. It is not the full real life object which we see. So in the perspective of Alfred Korzybski, maybe I'm spelling it slightly differently than the correct pronunciation. Please bear with me on that side. Yeah. So what happens is we always insert our observer reality in representing things, and we bring. So, for example, maps. What are the purpose of maps? Maps are basically an abstraction, and it also depends on whose map we are using. So, and in reality, there is only one territory. So that is where that concept, the map is not the territory. Whose map am I using? And it may have its own variations. Now let us just move a bit more detail to understand the characteristics. I will not take much time, but see where it can be applicable in an organizational context. When we have a meeting, we can see what perspectives are being brought in. And that's where we say, who is bringing that specific point? So how are we discussing to get the more real perspective in that place? So this is one mental model which we are exploring right now. Now, moving further, as we have just seen, reality has many more dimensions than maps can capture. So keep that in mind in your mind when we are discussing on any specific scenario. Keep that in mind. As I mentioned, on a change situations, it cannot be simply be done. Second, maps are, as we can see, backward-looking representations based on past data collected or the experiences we have lived. And they look into the reality at that point of time with a reference to a specific time period. So it is historical, not what it may look like ahead. So remember, this is sometimes challenging in organizational context. We always refer to the history. What next may not be presented. And maps don't indicate in what aspect they are less than reality too. So we can see this is an example, as we have seen, this is an example of map is not territory, is an example of mental models. So, and one mental model, there are different hundreds of mental models which we can explore. Now, in this model, we are seeing the relationship between reality and its representation. So the mind is creating maps of reality all the time. And why we use that? Because it is easier to grasp. We are sometimes taking them as ground truth. And remember, when we see that as a ground truth, what kind of challenges it may represent in our work and organizational life. So, yeah. So, for example, like you are seeing me through the image. That is an online persona. So that doesn't represent what my true persona is. So that is an image, So that's that blurry area which we are talking about. And this could be because we deliberately sometimes alter our persona. We omit unflattering aspects of our life, or the observer erroneously interprets information about our subjectivity. So these are elements which come in. So what can we do? So what can we do to make sure that we can manage these challenge which this mental model represent? We will move to that next. So one important aspect is, as we can see, get frequent reality checks. As we have mentioned, maps are based on the past data. So for example, like in software development, mental models are being used. Especially we may be exploring waterfall method for software development. And everything happens under the hood, and it is only after months that anyone finds out if what has been built is what the customer wanted, needed, or asked for. So that is, get into the frequent reality checks. What the change the customer has requested. Second aspect is shorten the Chinese whisper chain. Now, what we mean by that? A user researcher talks to potential users with objective of gaining insight into their problem, the pain points. When it moves to the product designer, what happens? Who creates a potential design that fit the model initially created, so that what translates. So that is what Chinese whisper is all about. Shorten the Chinese whisper chain, what the customer wanted, how The user researcher is sharing it to the product design team. And then the software team is coding accordingly to bring in an alternative product. Yeah, so at every stage, a model of one person or group is being passed on to another. What happens is it changes. The longer the chain, the more the abstraction. So imagine the stories which, when we can share it to one person, then that person to share it to next person, the third person, the information get changing. So that's what we have to be careful about. And third one is considering the map maker. Sometimes even the most detailed map can have inaccurate information. Map maker's motive do not match the map readers. Sometimes there is misalignment of interest. So it is always interesting to see, to adopt the perspective of the map maker and filter information based on that. So for example, in the case of, let us say, interaction with the vendor is interested in expanding the scope of what you are doing with respect to the project, because it may be the objective may be to maximize the profit with respect to what needs to be done. The principal agent problem, regardless of its utility to you. So remember, as we have seen, remember the map is not the territory. The territory's features are different and complex. So keep that in mind when you are exploring change in your organization. So that's from me today. I hope you might have understood some interesting concepts of how we can use mental models in our work and also in our life, and try to apply that in practice. And in case you have some interesting thoughts and you want to have a conversation, reach out to me. So thank you again. Remember, so closer our maps are to reality, the easier it is to navigate the terrain. So thank you for listening to me and joining me today. See you with another topic next day. That's tomorrow, same time, 5 o'clock UA time.